What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. I'm your host, Drew Manning.
And I'm your co-host, Lynn Manning.
And we are coming at you guys from Park City, Utah, which is not as exciting as Hawaii, which is where we used to be.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yes, we are back in Utah. We miss Hawaii, yes, of course. And we are hopefully moving back one day. We'll see, though. But anyways, we have another great episode for you guys. A great guest with a very inspiring story. And you guys are going to learn so much from this episode. Our guest, his name is Tyler Cartwright. And most of you probably might not know that name. But he has a very, very inspiring story that I had to share. And I got to know him through some people in the keto world, because I've been doing ketosis for a while now. Anyways, let me introduce you guys to Tyler. He's a husband, a father. He's a good guy. He has a 5-year-old, and he's been married to his wife, Jamie, for 14 years. He has a Bachelor of Science in Business Management, an MBA with a background in finance. He used to be 505 pounds, you guys. And he used to find himself waiting around just to die. After some deep soul searching and the love and support of a number of friends and family, he came to a realization that he needed to make a change. In the past 9 years, you guys, he's lost 230 pounds and counting, reversed a number of large health issues. Tyler's a self-professed nerd, an avid reader of all subjects which strike his interest. He fell in love with the sciences of human nutrition, wellness, and the psychology of change. And as a nerd, he's become something of a self-taught academic as it relates to those topics. In the past few years, he's combined his love of learning and his inner nerdness, his personal journey and concern for others, as he's begun helping others to focus on making similar changes to discover physical and mental wellness. He continues to push boundaries of what's possible when we learn to embrace the journey and challenge our own boundaries and preconceptions as a coach, contributing author, and thought leader at a website called ketogains.com. He's a big fan of ketosis. He's been living a ketogenic lifestyle. His wife lost 130
I think
pounds?
said about 100, I think he said about 115 pounds.
Yep. As a couple, they've been living a ketogenic lifestyle, and they've both lost, I think, 350 plus pounds as a couple, you guys. A very inspiring story. You guys are definitely in for a treat with this episode. We go into the things that he did, to what was his turning points, how he got his wife on board, because at first she was kind of, she felt betrayed by him trying to live a healthy lifestyle after they've lived an unhealthy lifestyle for so long. What he did to get her on board, and some of the important things that have helped him maintain this healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, his story is so inspiring, you guys. I really like hearing about his transition, especially because he has a very common perspective where he wasn't getting the support that he needed, how he was able to push through that, gain the confidence he needed, how he was able to start. Some people feel that they're so overweight that they don't know where to start or how to start. He really goes into those specifics and gives people some takeaways on how they can start and become confident in themselves and move forward towards their health goals.
Yeah, and he's just a real guy. Like, he's not like some fitness celebrity or anything like that. He's just a real down-to-earth Tennessee native,
he's
good
funny.
guy. He's funny, witty, smart. You
Which
guys are gonna
I
love.
love.
Yeah. But before we jump into that, you guys, this episode is brought to you by Ketojenics. Ketojenics is an exogenous ketone supplement. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this. You've seen me post about it. The demand for this product has been through the roof ever since we've been promoting this product. Basically what it is it puts your body into a state of ketosis within 60 minutes. When you're in ketosis, you guys, your body is primarily using fat, your own stored fat, for fuel. So you're in a quote unquote fat burning mode when you're in ketosis. But it can take a while to get into ketosis, getting off of glucose, right? If you've been eating glucose for, the past number of years, it can take a while to get in, sometimes 3, 4, 5 days before you get into that fat burning mode. When you take Ketojenics, you're in ketosis within 60 minutes of taking the product, and you can test your blood ketone levels to prove that you're in ketosis. So it's not just some gimmicky thing. There's real science behind it. Dr. Dom D'Agostino, who you guys have heard who you guys have heard on my podcast previously, he is the main scientist behind these products, these exogenous ketones. So definitely go check it out, ketogenics.com. Use my code FIT2FAT2FIT for 15% off, you guys. This is definitely a higher end product, but with my discount code 15% off, you're going to get a good discount with a very high quality product. And it's something that I use on myself, and has definitely shown some huge benefits, not just with weight loss or fat loss, but cognitive function, mental clarity, focus, energy throughout the day. So go check it out, ketogenics.com. Use my code FIT2FAT2FIT.
Yeah, and the other show sponsor is Quest Nutrition. Dun, dun, dun. Everybody knows that I love Quest bars. I'm always Snapchatting them. I just like to briefly outline why we use them so often. Everybody can get, their protein from many different sources. But for me, I like to make sure I have a protein source on hand in my car, in my purse, at the office. A lot of times we fall into the fast food trap because we aren't prepared. So keep a Quest bar in those areas and locations, and I promise that you will be able to stay on track. My favorite's cookie dough. They also have Quest chips. They're delicious. QuestNutrition.com. Check them out.
All right, you guys, let's go hang out with Tyler. All right, Tyler, welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. How are things down in Tennessee?
Getting warmer by the day, and the trees are attacking my sinuses, so it's all good. Another beautiful day today. Got a little bit of rain, and the flowers are starting to bloom in earnest, so life is good.
That's good, man. I've never been there, but I'm definitely going to have to check it out. I met Rich Froning just recently and at FitCon. And he's a cool guy, and he's from Tennessee as well, somewhere near Nashville. I don't know if you know who he is, but
I know who Rich Froning is.
Okay.
A friend of mine was coming out to FitCon, and Rich was going to be there, and he asked me to bottle up Rich's sweat in case it had meant.
That's funny, man. Yeah, I remember people were taking pictures of him as he was getting a massage at one of the booths. Oh,
jeez.
So for those of you who don't,
right? Yeah.
I was going to say, for those who don't know who Rich Froning is, he's pretty much the Michael Jordan of CrossFit, and he's pretty popular in the CrossFit world. But yeah, if you're not in the CrossFit world, you're like, who are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
So anyways, let me just kind of tell my audience how I came to know you, Tyler, and why I decided to bring you on. So just for you guys listening, I've been into the keto lifestyle, I guess you can say, just recently actually, and I've been a big fan of it, and I've just wanted to learn more and more about the science. And the first thing that turned me on to the ketogenic lifestyle was hearing Dr. Dominic D'Agostino a while ago on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and started hearing about the science behind it, and just it was super intriguing. And then I started digging into it a little bit more, and started to get connected to people in the keto world, I guess you can say. And someone led me to this Facebook group called Keto Gains, and that's where I met you and heard about your story. And it's just so interesting, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. So let's actually start out with that, Tyler, if you don't mind. Kind of go back about 9-10 years and tell my audience a little bit about your story, your background.
Sure. So played every sport imaginable in high school, and went off to college and left that behind and discovered pizza and beer. I think a lot of us can relate to that story. I didn't so much develop an affinity for, was it Cinnamon Toast Crunch? I've heard on the podcast.
That's my advice, man. That was so good.
Me and Chris,
Pizza and beer are not bad though.
Yeah, pizza and beer is a close second.
Fair enough. So me and Krispy Kreme have a relationship. It's love. So I steer clear of that place these days. No. So I am a competitive person by nature, and if you take the competitive stimulus away from somebody, I think they invent new ways to compete with themselves. And one of the ways I competed with myself was, what can I eat? What can I drink? What can I do? What can I not do? Right. And so, I think that, I ended up getting, and I'm going a little further back since I'm, be 38 this year, than you asked, just downstream cascades of things. My wife and I got married, and I think it's a situation where you can be right for each other and be enabling to each other at the same time. And I think that we both would, openly admit that we were enabling each other to make really toxic life choices. And so I found myself just about 9 years ago or so at right at 505 and change pounds. So yeah, I mean that's
well, a lot of people, to kind of not to cut you off too much in the middle of your story, but a lot of people that we've spoken with or that I've read their stories, when they get up into the into being obese, there's generally kind of like an emotional reason that has kind of pushed them there, taken them there. Was there anything that was propelling you in your life to continually gain the weight, or do you just feel like you went from being extremely athletic to loving food?
I think it's twofold. One thing that I'll say is with apologies, I love the television show, so let me start by saying that. But I think that with some of the other television shows I've seen, it seems like everybody wants to distill down getting, what I guess I would call ultra obese to one issue, right? And I don't at all mean to make light of those issues because some of them are really tragic, right? But I think there is a lot of things. I don't think, and I said this in a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, nobody gets to 500 or 600 pounds because of one thing. There's a lot of stuff going wrong in their life. For me, I think it's there are several things. I mean, on a personal level, you get frustrated by life when you expect one thing and something else happens, and I'm being very general there, but it happens in everything. Careers not taking off like you want it to. Relationships don't magically, blossom into this thing without work and effort and energy, right? There's just so many different facets of life that were broken for me.
Would you still consider yourself at that time, because you were married, would you consider yourself happy at that moment? Because we know some people who were overweight and they would be like, what, I'm happy because I can eat whatever I want to. I don't have to worry about going to the gym. And there's a lot of people that are overweight and still very happy people. Would you consider yourself happy?
Well, I would have considered myself content, if that's a word. I'm a big believer that contentment breeds happiness. I would say I was content. I don't think I was happy, because one of the things that happens when you get to that weight, and I actually wrote about it at the ketogains.com website, was there is sort of this lie that you do to yourself when you get there. You tell yourself, well, I didn't really want to go out with my friends anyway. I didn't want to go, grab dinner with a college buddy. I didn't want to go do any of those things. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, I'd have loved to, but, the sheer fear factor of going and sitting in a booth at a restaurant and not being able to fit, or breaking a chair, or having to sit in someone else's car and the seatbelt not fitting you. Those are very real things that, happen when you get to that sort of weight. And so I think that we lie to ourselves and tell ourselves, oh, we're happy. But deep down inside, no, I wasn't happy with the way that I looked. I mean, when somebody sitting beside you on an airplane pages the flight attendant and asks to be moved, there's an emotional stigma there. You can't sit in that moment and cover your eyes with your hands or your ears with your hands and pretend that you're that you're satisfied with the way that things have worked out so far. I think you'd be a fool to think that.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that happened to you.
It did. All of them have happened to me.
Wow. So here's the thing I want to throw out there, because I just want people to understand this. Like, for example, when I talk about my Fit to Fat to Fit experience, I don't even pretend to know exactly what it's like, right? Especially for someone like you, Tyler, where you were. Those experiences, there's no way I could ever fully know what you went through at those moments. Emotionally, mentally, physically, it must have been a lot more difficult than I could ever imagine. So I just want people to know, I don't pretend to know what it's like for somebody in Tyler's shoes or someone else's shoes that's been that way or has gotten to 500 plus pounds. There's no way I could ever know. Even if I, put on hundreds of pounds and kept it on for years, I still wouldn't, have those same experiences. So thank you so much for being able to share those with us. And And it's cool that this is an awesome success story, but there are people that are still stuck at that stage where you were. So that's what we want to get into, is like, just give people an idea of what it's like, for you, or what it was like, and how they can overcome this, because you are living proof of that. So let's talk about that, like on an emotional level between you and your wife, because your wife, you said you guys kind of enabled each other. Was she big too, or how much weight did she gain?
She has lost 12 pounds as of a couple of days ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so we are at about 345, almost 350 pounds as a couple.
Wow, man. Congrats.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. We'll definitely have to talk a little bit about your experience of doing it together. That's probably a lot easier and more powerful.
One of the things I'll say is she's got, deep down inside, the reality is I'm still a guy. We definitely have a little bit of a metabolic advantage. There is definitely some hormonal benefit that exists there that she really didn't have. And her struggle with that and trying to get that weight off and dealing with, a lot of medical issues, honestly, I think her journey's been, more difficult, and I'm more inspired by that than I am by my own. But, I think to address, kind of the question at hand, there is definite enablement that exists there. And I think it comes from all the right places. It comes from a desire to see each other be happy, to see each other be content, to see each other, to enjoy those moments. But, sometimes I think, things that started out with good intentions can gonna go off the rails as well. We would find ourselves, we enjoyed spending time at restaurants eating out. And then we looked up and realized we were spending, $2,000, $2,500 a month going to restaurants and eating out, because that's a place that we connected. The problem is we also connected with a lot of really, hyper palatable and, hypercaloric sort of foods as well. So, it was good intentions, driving right off a cliff, so to speak. And so there was definite, lifestyle change that had to happen there in terms of redefining our relationship.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What was the transition for both of you, or did it happen with just one person? Like, did it happen with just you that made this switch where you said to yourself, okay, I want to make some changes, or did she do that, or did it happen together? What was the transition? And you said it was 9 years ago, right? You started this journey, right?
So, yeah, absolutely. So I can start, I guess, and kind of tell the point at which it kind of started for me. And definitely, I think it started for me first. And truthfully, I think, there were some emotional challenges for my wife in dealing with the fact that I was trying to make this change. But, I was about 9 years or so ago. I had actually just purchased a new truck. I was super proud of it. It was a black on black F-150. It was the prettiest thing that ever was. It was shiny. So I go and I purchased this truck and took a friend with me and took it for a test drive around the parking lot, but I really didn't need to get it out on the road. It was one of those moments where it's like, I know that's the truck I want. Just write up the paperwork. I'm not even going to negotiate. And so finished the paperwork on the truck, got in the truck, went to drive back to my house and realized that the seatbelt didn't fit.
Oh.
And so in my brand new truck that I now had payments for 4 years, so I dropped a friend of mine off and actually ended up having to go back to the parts department at the dealership and purchase a couple of seatbelt extenders for the vehicle. And, the girl that was standing in front of me at the parts counter was about as big as my left forearm is now. And she said, I don't know what those are. And it was this moment where I actually kind of had to come face to face and describe what a seatbelt extender was. And I wanted to look at her and say, you've never been on an airplane. You've never seen a fat person. What? But, there was definitely some emotion there. And so I actually got the seatbelt extenders and I left and I stopped at a little Mexican restaurant that my wife and I used to like to eat at pretty frequently. And was there by myself and sat down and ordered up a meal. And as the food came, kind of sat back in my seat, and the chair broke underneath me, and I spilled the table and all the food down on top of my leg and burnt my leg in the process. And so, it was one of those things where I just paid the bill and got in the truck and drove to a little creek not too far from my house and watched a bunch of kids playing. And I would say, several weeks before this, my mother had actually written me a letter that was pretty emotional. I mean, it was, one of those letters that's kind of a, I don't want to bury my child sort of letters. And it definitely, was still kind of fresh in mind. And so it was kind of that point where I think a lot of things snapped into focus, and I realized that I really had to, two choices. If I can borrow from a cliche from a movie, get busy living or get busy dying, right? That I had just been sitting around for almost a decade waiting to die. And, I think the interesting thing was, my wife kind of sat back and watched me settle into this routine of, trying to change and trying to eat healthier. And she wasn't, I don't think, terribly interested in it. And I think, what was really interesting, guys, is, we've talked about it actually fairly recently. And she said, I really felt betrayed a little bit by you at that point in time.
Interesting.
All of those things that we used to do where we connected, like going out to eat at restaurants or going to the movies and getting, popcorn and drinks and whatever, all of those things were now gone because, it wasn't fair to you to put yourself in that position. So now all of a sudden there was a disconnect between us because you had removed kind of that stimulus that was triggering, poor behavior for you. And so it really wasn't what I expected. As I thought, everybody was going to get like giant foam fingers of the number one. And like come out every time I walked out of the house to go to the gym, and they would like be celebrating me. And it was like the Calvin commercial for McDonald's back in the day. Calvin's got a job, and everybody's giving him high fives.
Oh yeah,
it totally wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. It was, there were hurt feelings, there was confusion, there was a lot of things, and I don't think it was just, between my wife and I. I mean, friends, would kind of, became distant with some friends as well in the process. So, but eventually I think she realized this is something that we, that was going to redefine our relationship for the better, but that we needed to get on board, collaboratively and figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've actually heard that a lot with clients. I have a couple blog posts about it with clients, and especially with their friends and especially their loved one or their spouse, that sometimes the person does feel betrayed or they feel like you're leaving them behind. I think sometimes, though people don't often openly talk about it, when I've sat down with a couple people, they've also said they had the fear that that person would outgrow them or leave them, or as they change, they would realize they didn't want to be with them or didn't have as much in common. And like you said, a lot of your commonalities centered around food, and your love of food. And I can totally relate to that. I'm such a foodie. I love going out to restaurants and the experience. I'd have a hard time dating somebody that was like, we're never going out to restaurants. I'd be like, okay, it's done. But my question for you, because I'm actually surprised, and it's definitely harder to start on any type of journey if you're not getting all the support you need. Are there any key factors that helped you to believe in yourself that you could do this? A lot of people, even when they get that aha moment, and of course you had some big ones that you shared with us, they don't always believe that they can make the change and that they could get up and go to the gym and change their eating habits. Do you attribute anything to your confidence in being able to do that, especially since initially you didn't really have that support?
I think it's a couple of things. I think the first is, it's funny. I had gone to see my doctor just to kind of get a checkup before I started doing this, which is probably a smart thing when you're as big as I was, to make sure you weren't going to keel over on a treadmill. And he looked at me and he said, Tyler, you're as healthy as a horse. The problem is you're also as big as one. And, but he said to me something that really just kind of shook my world. He said, I'm not going to draw your blood. He said, because I know what I'm going to have to write down on that piece of paper and what I'm going to have to record, and I don't want to do that. When you're falling asleep sitting on a couch, when you're falling asleep driving, when these things are happening to you, we know what the outcome is. I know what that blood result's going to show. So I'm not going to take your blood. Go change. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think it was a very sober realization that I could absolutely, wind up, in a full-blown case type 2 diabetes with no hope for recourse there or, resolution. So, I mean, there was a definite fight for my own health. And knowing that, my wife and I were hopeful that we would have, a child or two along the way, that, that wasn't a reality for us at this point in time. And so there was some definite, health concerns that were there. I think from a motivation, I think I would say this: I am a stubborn person by nature. And, when I set out to do something, there's not the middle of the road for me. And so I think it definitely, lends itself well. But I think the third thing would be there is sort of a us versus the world or me versus the world sort of a mindset that happens there when, you read something like what, Robert Lustig has written that basically says there's no hope for the obese because they're not going to keep the weight up. The recidivism rate for obesity is astronomical. You read these articles and you just keep telling yourself, I don't want to turn into that statistic. What do I have to do to make that change? But not so much physically just make that change, but what do I have to do to make that change internally so that it, so that the triggered me before don't trigger me anymore. The things that, that I, the conflict I never dealt with, the depression, the anxiety, all of those behaviors, what can I do to regulate those behaviors or to get a better grip on, my own individual psychosis, if you will.
Yeah. And what, for all those people listening, because I think, I hear the same thing for people, whether they're 50 pounds overweight or 150 pounds overweight, are those emotional triggers. What are some of the things that really helped you so that you didn't relapse?
Definitely I'd be lying if I said there weren't days or weeks or, periods of time where stress gets the better of you and you do stupid things, right? I mean, and I would define a stupid thing as anything that moves you away from a goal that you've set for yourself. That's a stupid decision, in the scheme of things. But there are times and places for stupid decisions. If you're celebrating with somebody and you can control the outcome, go for it, I guess, whatever. But, for me, I think it was, and what I would tell people is, you've almost got to step back and treat, I wrote an article about this talking about the idea of an after action report, right? So it's kind of like, when a police officer or military involved in an engagement that they come back and document what happened. And I don't think we do a very good job of that as people in our own lives. I'm a huge believer in things like journaling, and I'm also a huge believer in having some sort of accountability partner or somebody that you can be open and honest with, whether that's a spouse, a friend, a loved one, a pen pal, an online coach, whatever. But I think those two things are really, really helpful in terms of kind of keeping me focused, is the ability to sit down and say, hey, I really was having this feeling. And when I tried to deconstruct why I had this feeling or why this was the trigger that I don't normally have, what happened, you can step back and say, oh, well, that, I was really having a rough day at work. These things happened. Somebody said something that was really hurtful, whatever. And you can kind of recognize those patterns, and then you can kind of get out in front of it. It's sort of like a disease or a disorder. When you have a name for it, all of a sudden you feel much more empowered to fight that thing. With regard to the idea of accountability, just having somebody that you can go to and say, man, I'm just not feeling it. Whether that's a coach, a trainer, a gym buddy, a pastor, a minister, a next door neighbor, a spouse, or whatever. Everybody's got to have some outlet for that, because if you try and do it all on your own, at some point, your own willpower, your own ability just fails.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. Even for me as a personal trainer who I did my fit to fat to fit journey. I was only overweight for 6 months, but believe me, I had days where I was like, you know what? it's cold, it's raining outside. I just want to stay inside, eat my Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and not go to the gym. So I don't care who you are. You're going to have days where you lose motivation. And so, yeah, you do have to have that accountability partner. So that's kind of what my next question was how did you eventually get your wife on board with this lifestyle change? Was it just your consistency in wanting this, and she eventually jumped on board, or how did that happen with her?
I think that she saw that I was, being earnest and honest here, that this wasn't a desire to change things and to change our relationship. It was a desire to improve our relationship by making these changes. And I think that she would, if she were sitting here, she would tell you something very similar, that it was, an effort on our part, collaboratively. It was kind of unilateral at first. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a pastor about 6 months ago, and one of the things that I said to him was, I said, it's so funny, in any relationship, the first thing that sometimes has to happen is you have to talk about the elephant in the room, and then you can figure out how to shoo it out the front door. And
I like that.
When she saw what was going on, in my life, and that I was really trying to make efforts to change for a lot of reasons, not the least of which was so that we could, achieve some of our own personal goals, she kind of jumped on board with that. And I think at first it was begrudging, if he's going to do these things and eat this way and behave this way, and, all of the restaurants and the theaters and all of those things are kind of off the table, then maybe I can meet him somewhere in the middle. And I think from there, she had definitely, experienced some early success in trying to get, her arms around some of her own health issues. And as those started to snap into focus and get a little, a little better, it's like a snowball rolling down a hill, right? It starts off small, but by the time it gets some momentum going, it's also pretty, substantially large. It's a movement, not just a thought.
I love that. Now, so, most people are going to want to know. So you started around 505 pounds, your journey to get healthier. Is that accurate?
That is.
Okay. So you started about 505 pounds. What exactly did you do? What were your steps? What was the nutrition plan you were on? What did you do as far as exercise? And how long of a progression was that to where you are now? And how much weight are you at at this point?
Sure. So let me tackle the last part first. That's the easy one. I am about 275 pounds now.
Wow.
So right around 230-ish pounds down at this point. I am still going down. I'm actually targeting trying to have some surgery for some of the lasting effects, if you will, that significant weight loss, here later this year. And so definitely doing pretty aggressive dieting and training plans, trying to get prepared for that. With respect to the first question there, and I think how to even answer that.
Yeah, I mean, did you
how did you get started?
Did you start walking? Did you just?
Definitely. Well, I guess the reason I'm hemming and hawing a little bit here, the first couple of weeks that I decided that I wanted to do this, to be really transparent with you, my goal was to be able to stand up for more than 10 minutes without soaking a shirt. It had gotten to a point with my health, that walking from, the car to my bonus room upstairs in the house that we lived in previously was about all the taxation my body could take. So the idea was just simply go to the gym and walk on a treadmill for 5 minutes. And my first goal was walk for 5 minutes at 2.5 miles an hour and not break a sweat. And,
awesome.
That was very, very basic, very early on, and very kind of self-motivated or self-intentioned. I'm convinced that, that the gym owners there were not real keen with the 500-pound guy stomping on their treadmill, but, they were actually really supportive and ended up striking up a conversation with both of them. And the first trainer was actually one of the owners of the gym. So,
I love that.
We started working together and definitely, just to kind of give her the thumbs up and shout out, Emily Weir, if you ever listen to this, you are an amazing, amazing person. There was no judgment. It was very welcoming. It was very accommodating. And it was, hey, let's just meet you where you are. And, sometimes people have this perception of trainers as uber fit, and so they've got no concept of, how to deal with somebody who can't squat because, think about the lever action on that knee at 500 pounds, right? Who can't do. So we would start out doing silly things, throwing a medicine ball back and forth, or, just trying to get some rotation and movement back in my spine. And so there was a lot of that sort of transition from a training perspective. It was very much a, finding somebody who met me where I was and kind of helped carry me forward. With a nutritional perspective, I started off kind of trying the approach that I think everybody tries. It's the eat less, move more model of, physical fitness and diet and weight loss, right? So in my head, it was go to Whole Foods. It was buy the organic versions of all the same stuff I was already eating. Yep. Because organic sugar doesn't count. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but
or gluten-free sugar too.
That's right. That's right. The other day I saw meat with a sticker that said gluten-free, and I thought, sure hope so.
Yeah.
But so it was one of those things where that just didn't work for me. All it was doing was reinforcing bad behavior with fancier names, and that's just not a healthy approach for me. And so I started really researching some of the science behind a lot of the Atkins diets, and some of the more modern adaptations or versions of that. And, I'm a science nerd at heart, so it kind of stuck. And so almost all of the weight, I think the first 15, 20 pounds or so was lost just eating super low calorie and super low fat. But the bulk of it has been lost eating essentially a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. Was it because I know you follow the ketogenic lifestyle now, but what did you use that to lose the majority of your weight? And it sounds like you did.
I did, yeah.
Awesome. So let's does that lead us into ketogains.com, this website that you've created or co-authored, or I'm not sure what your official title is, but tell us about the journey, the transition from that to what Keto Gains is for my followers.
Sure, absolutely. So Keto Gains is a group of people who are definitely interested in living life and trying to test boundaries. So physical boundaries, mental boundaries, trying to push themselves to see what the capabilities of a human being are while being ketogenic. One of the interesting things is that, early on it was ketogenic diets don't work. They're short-term stopgap measures for weight loss. And, people, return to what they were previously eating and they gain all the weight back. And that's definitely a true statement. But that's like saying you got exercise and you can go run a marathon. Now, if you sit on a couch for 6 months and go run a marathon, you're going to die. Well, yeah, you probably will. That's a common sense statement. Started kind of doing some research around groups online as I started to get more serious about, realizing that there is a definite challenge that exists for somebody that was my size that didn't exist for somebody that, was losing maybe 15 or 20 pounds, and I can't presume to know their struggles and their challenges, but I'm almost a decade into this and I'm still not at goal weight. So, there's some challenges that are unique there. And so I started kind of looking around and found actually the Reddit forum for Reddit Keto and Reddit Keto Gains, and just started, spending time there doing some reading and research, and figured out that there were a whole bunch of other nerds out there that were interested in the science as well as the application. And so actually joined the Facebook group, which at the time had about 3,000 members or so, and started sharing and posting and hypothesizing there. And several of the administrators reached out, not the least of which was one of the founders of the group, Luis Villaseñor. For those of you that follow him online, it's Darth Luigi with 2 G's. I have no idea where he came from, but asked me to admin, and then the brand and the group has kind of just exploded over the last year and a half or so. We're at about 20,000 members or so now on I think 20,400, I think, as of this afternoon. And
wow.
The Reddit subreddit is at about the same, about 30,000 people, give or take. So definitely, I think people are interested, and I think that they're interested not in hearing so much about, keto is a magic unicorn and life changes and everything perfect if you eat steak, or seeing people, eating sticks of butter and double fisting the bacon, but instead stepping back and saying, hey, energy balance still matters, right? I mean, science doesn't change because you're ketogenic, but certain hormonal aspects of science definitely tilt in your favor when you are. And so I think we've taken a very realistic, very science-oriented approach to a ketogenic diet and to training and endurance, both endurance and resistance training while ketogenic. And I think that that's of interest to people right now. We've got several people in the group that don't eat ketogenic. They're just baffled by the fact that we can do it when science keeps saying, yeah, you can lose weight on a ketogenic diet, but performance is terrible. Meanwhile, we've got people, several people winning strongman competition, several people, who are placing, age groups and otherwise in powerlifting meets eating straight ketogenic diets, which is just perplexing and I think a little bit frustrating to the mainstream of exercise nutrition.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, there's still people even in the fitness industry that still don't even really know what ketosis is or understand what a ketogenic diet is. I mean, I just recently went on the Dr. Oz show, and that will air fairly soon. And it's going to be funny because there's still some old science that people it's kind of like an old habit. Like people are just like, it's so hard to let go of these old, mentalities and these thoughts and these theories behind this old science. And so
wait, you guys are telling me that I can't eat sticks of butter and double fist bacon. I am out. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
It's so funny what people think.
I didn't say you can't. I mean, I guess
I'm just kidding. I do what I want. I'm going to have butter and bacon, but I also, also obviously eat vegetables and healthy stuff too. But life isn't complete without butter and bacon. It's fine. Carry on with your keto talk.
Well, that was the picture online that said like what people think we eat, and it's just this big bowl of bacon. It's like what we actually eat. And it's this beautiful salad with some nice cherry tomatoes and some ham and bacon and cheese and like a nice vinegar dressing or whatever. It's like that's more aligned with what I eat on a daily basis. Maybe not so much the salad, but variety, some vegetables, some meat, some fat, some healthy fats.
Does your wife eat keto with you as well? Does she eat the same type of diet?
Yeah, she has been eating this way for, I guess, probably 3 or 4 years now. 3 years anyhow.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. Do you feel like the keto lifestyle is something that people can maintain long term, or do you feel like it's good to go in and out of ketosis and 3 months on and then do more of a modified keto? Or what's your approach to this lifestyle? Is it hardcore, in ketosis every single day, or what's your maintenance approach? I guess I should ask.
So from my perspective, I mean, for me, and specifically, I stay ketogenic all the time. We actually, from a training perspective, I utilize a method called the targeted ketogenic diet, which got a whole paragraph and a half in Lyle's 1997 book. So, we got a little bit of a conversation point there, but it's really just about taking a very small amount of carbohydrate, just before a workout. So in my case, probably 6 to 12 grams of like dextrose powder or Smarties candy.
That's gonna throw some people off.
Like, what?
Did he just say Smarties candy?
Yes, he did.
I have to clarify for international listeners, because I learned this the hard way. Smarties are a different candy in most of the rest of the world. So
what are they?
Talking about, they're like chocolate coated discs or something with some candy, because they're like M&Ms sort of, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. So I learned the hard way that people were really confused when I said, get yourself a bag of Smarties. And, several folks in the UK and Australia were like, what are you talking about? And I tried to explain it. They're like, oh, you mean fizzies, or you mean, and so like every has a different name for this product. But I think the simple solution here is if somebody's interested, I would say this, come talk with us on the website or this, the subreddit, and understand what the basis of it is, because it's not eating candy because candy is yummy. It is trying to bump insulin just a little bit to try and drive out one more rep or 5 more pounds or whatever in a workout that just really up the intensity just slightly. while remaining ketogenic. I can test myself before, during, and after, and I remain ketogenic through the entire cycle, right? So, I mean, there's no big issue there. I think that with regard to, your other question, Drew, about, the weight stable or the maintenance facets of it, I think that I will default back to what, I don't know if it was Marty Burkhan or someone originally said, the best diet is the one that you'll expletive deleted stick to. And I think that that's probably the truest statement in all of nutrition and health, right? I mean, if we're going to eat this way for the rest of our life, it better be a way that we can eat for the rest of our life. For some people, who are weight stable, if they want to go out and celebrate a birthday and have a couple of beers with a friend, I don't necessarily see that being an issue. However, for somebody who knows what their triggers are and knows that those things are triggers, they would be better served to just stay in what they refer to as an SKD or a standard ketogenic diet all the time. I don't think there's any issue. The one thing that I would say from a performance perspective is, it's not really been tested, I don't think. I was talking with Jacob Wilson and Ryan Lowry about this a couple of months ago, through like an instant message on Facebook or whatever. And then we were touching on it a little bit, while we were out at FitCon. And one of those things that comes up is about like the cyclical ketogenic diet. So eating, whether it be for 5 days or 7 days and then off for a day or two. And one of the things that Dr. Wilson raised as a point was his concern about whether that person ever truly keto adapts. And what we mean by that is we really don't know. Keto adaptation means a lot of different things to a lot of people. The way I've defined it is this: when your workout stops sucking and life gets measurably better, you're probably keto adapted, but we really don't fully understand all of the adaptations that are happening in the human body to make that happen. Some hypothesis around like mitochondria and cells and some other things, but there's really not been a clear study that shows that this is the linear or multifaceted path to becoming keto adapted. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, it comes down to what works best for that individual, right? What's something that they're going to stick to. And yeah, the ketogenic diet may not be sustainable for a lot of people, but maybe it is. If you haven't tried it, look into the science behind it, do the research, and then do what feels good. Now, talking about keto adapted, yes, if you eat ketogenic for 4 days and you feel horrible because you've been eating carbs your whole entire life, that's pretty, expected to happen when you transition from glucose to ketones. So you can't just judge the keto diet based off of a 3-day experiment, right? So you're saying...
You can and you will. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Lynn had a mini
I had the keto flu, and I thought I was dying, and I literally called Drew and I said, I'm dying. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like I'm physically ill. My body's shutting down. And he, in like the nicest way possible, was like, your body is so used to all the donuts it eats that it is fighting you tooth and nail. Just give it another day. And then it was like a day later, I was taking a product too, Kegenix, which was helping me kind of move through it faster. And then like the next day I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm not dying.
Yeah.
But it was the, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I thought it was like the worst. So I just forewarning people that try keto, prepare yourself.
Definitely. Well. Two things I would say there. Definitely, I think exogenous ketones have a place in that early facet. If somebody's got the disposable income to purchase them, I think that they can definitely help alleviate some of that issue. I also think that getting sufficient electrolytes is a big thing. When you become ketogenic, the body tends to shed electrolyte salts pretty rapidly, and so you end up cramped and feverish, and you feel terrible. And it's not just a physical pain or a physical frustration; it is like mental cloudiness. I mean, nothing is working optimally. And so, to your point, Drew, I think a lot of people try this for a week or 4 days or 2 days or whatever, and they come back and they've all of a sudden declared all of the science invalid and determined that I'm, to borrow from Ronald McDonald, I'm a special snowflake, and
oh my gosh!
And so so I must be one of the 1 in 10,000 or 100,000 for whom ketogenic diets don't work. And I would simply say, one of the first dates I ever took my wife on was squirrel hunting. And that will tell you just
Okay,
that
that woman is a saint.
That's
and
Tennessee
she must
for you,
really
right?
love you.
guy. After a couple of days, we probably wouldn't be married, and we wouldn't have the life that we've got now. Um, you know what I would say is this: you can't judge a diet based on a 2-day trial. I mean, quite frankly, I've been ketogenic for so long now. If I shifted to go eating a pizza, I would literally be in a coma. In fact, the last time that I ever decided that I was frustrated and decided to have kind of a quote unquote cheat meal was many months ago. But I laid down on the floor to watch something on my iPad, and I woke up 4 hours later covered in my own drool. I mean, that doesn't mean necessarily that for somebody who is very, very insulin, tolerant or very insulin sensitive, that eating a diet based in pizza is necessarily going to cause them to gain weight and, turn into a 500-pound person like myself. But it does mean for me, this just doesn't work. And I can't judge, carbohydrates based on my propensity to eat way too many of them. Right. And I think this thing could be said for a ketogenic diet. If you're going to do it the right way. Leverage the tools that are available to you, whether that is online forums, whether that is a coach that knows what they're talking about, whether that is, products and supplements that are out there that can help people to get through that process and that period. I think that people will be foolish not to do that. I mean, those of us that went through this in the Stone Ages when there wasn't any of this just had to lay in bed with with a heat blanket on, one side and a bottle of ice water in the other and deal with it. The science has come so much further along thanks to guys like, Patrick Arnold, Dom D'Agostino, Jacob Wilson, all these people that are pushing science of all of this forward. That there has been, that there is more legitimacy in this, and also, more tools in the proverbial toolkit to try and mitigate this, and also to make it as successful as possible for each individual person.
Yeah. So would you recommend, your website Ketogains as a starting place for people that, might want to give the ketogenic diet a try? Is that a good place to get started, or what would you recommend people do?
Well, there's a good ketogenic calculator that exists at the website, and I think that will be a great place for people to go and figure out exactly what they should be eating, because there's a lot of misinformation and information out there that lacks scientific research and evidence. So definitely check the website out for that information. The Facebook forum, the Reddit subreddit at Reddit/r/Ketogains is another good place to jump in. Just looking for some of that assistance from those of us that have kind of gone down this path before would be a good place, I think, to at least get started in the right direction. Especially if somebody's interested in doing any sort of endurance or resistance training. At the expense of sounding a little bit arrogant, I don't think there's a better forum on the interweb anywhere for the dispensation of that sort of information to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that, Tyler. We're coming up on time here, but really quick before we get into our lightning round, where can people get a hold of you? Because I know people, once they hear this, are going to want to reach out to you and ask you questions and things like that. Where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter, if that makes any sense at all.
Hey, I saw you. I saw you on Twitter
me.
today.
I'm on Twitter, but I'm never on Twitter. Yeah.
Let's be candid here, Drew. I mean, you should be happy that they're using you to pitch totally legal steroids, right?
I know. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I get a lot of people that actually these people, have my back. They look out for me. They're like, hey, people are using your pictures to sell these steroids where they use your before and after photos, and it shows you did it in 4 weeks. Yes, that still goes on, and it's a headache. Just let everyone know it's a headache. Like, I've gone through an attorney to find out how to do this. It's a 6-month process, very expensive. And by the time they get the website down, it's 6 months later. It's like, and then I lost $2,000, to get this website down. So it's a mess. So luckily people like you guys are looking out for me, letting me know. And most people are, hopefully most people recognize me and know that I wouldn't. And
if not, you should have gone on there and be like, that's a lie. It happened in like 2 days. Hopefully people look at those before and afters and realize 4 weeks is not logical, people.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
So your Facebook is just Tyler Cartwright?
You can find me there. I think the easiest way, because, when I was born in 1978, there weren't many Tylers. We couldn't go to Disney World and get the little license plate. But, now I think it's one of the more common names in the world. So if you Google Tyler Cartwright or Facebook there's like 30 of us.
Yeah.
So just come join Keto Gains and find me there. It's pretty much the easiest way to track me down on social media. Where I spend most of my time is Facebook. I do have an Instagram account at Ty_Cartwright because somebody beat me to my full name. Whoever has Tyler Cartwright, call me. I'm willing to work out a deal. I'll trade you some supplements or something. Definitely reach out to me there. We are about to start a boot camp for folks that have pretty substantial amounts of weight to lose. We recognize that there is a different mindset or a different sort of life cycle, if you will, around trying to make those changes in life, and that it's as much mental or more mental than it is actually, the physical aspects of moving and eating the right foods. And so if folks are interested, definitely reach out to us. I think that information is going to go out in an email form tomorrow, actually. So
cool, man. I'll definitely help you guys promote that. That sounds very interesting, because that's something that's true to my heart is the mental and emotional side of all this, right? That's the biggest lesson I learned from my Fit to Fat to Fit journey. I used to think it was just the physical side, right? Eat less, exercise more. What's wrong with you? It's so easy to stop eating that food. But my eyes have been opened a little bit into the mental and emotional side, but that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So just reach out to us. Definitely, I'm a pretty open person. So if you've got questions, there's not a whole lot that offends me. So not a whole lot I haven't been through in this. So definitely give me a shout, and if I can help you, I'll definitely be glad to try.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we're coming into one of my favorite parts of the show, the very end, where we do the lightning round. Now, I don't know. I already do the light.
What's
What'd
that?
you say?
Oh, that's what it is. The connection's going bad now. It's, I
the
can't
connection.
hear
I can't. Did you say like? I know you're going to do well in this because you've been making me laugh and you've been saying things like Ronald McDonald's special snowflake. That right there makes me know you're going to have good answers to the lightning round. Dun, dun, dun. So you obviously know the deal. I'm going to ask you just some randomness, and you just, whatever comes to mind. First thing that comes to mind, quickest answers you can come up with. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. If you inherited or won $1 million, what would you do with it?
Go to medical school so that I can shut people up.
Go to medical school, shut
I
people up.
love that answer.
Okay, I was hoping for something really exciting, but I mean, medical school's
is about $1 million.
Amazing too. Woohoo!
My mortgage is that.
Okay, pay off his mortgage. Go to medical school. Okay, done.
Shut people up.
Okay, and shut people up.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the last really good book that you read that you really couldn't put down? It was so good.
Well, come on. I've got an author on the phone here, so...
well, I mean...
Actually, I'll tell you, I don't read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction, self-help, personal change sort of books. One of the best books I have ever read in my entire life was a book called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. And
what's it about?
If you've never read it, go buy a copy. It is absolutely life-changing to deal with some of the relationships and personal issues that plague a lot of us, yeah.
You said it's called Necessary Endings?
Yes, by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's the same guy who wrote the book Boundaries, if you've ever heard that or read that before.
I actually have heard of that book, Boundaries. Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, if you could describe yourself using just 3 words.
I don't know that swear words are allowed on your podcast. No, I'm kidding.
They are.
Make it PG rated.
It's like PG-13 bordering on R.
PG-13. Well, nowadays the PG-13 standards are pretty much the R of yesterday. But
so let's see. 3 words. Loud, amusing, and friendly. I guess I don't know.
Oh, I like
Yeah,
that. That's a
you're
good
friendly,
combo.
Tyler.
I love people that are loud, friendly, and funny.
Okay, couple questions for you. You consider yourself a science nerd, right?
I am.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
I am a Star Wars junkie. I enjoy Star Trek, but I'm a Star Wars guy.
Yeah.
But you enjoy Star Trek. I mean, I'm a Trekkie. I'm just wanting to clarify that you still enjoy
You guys
Star
can
Trek
still
as
be
well.
friends.
Like Jimmy Moore's wife, she's got the suit and everything. Y'all should hang out sometime.
I love it. They're coming out with a new Star Wars. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, sorry, a new Star Trek, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay.
That's awesome. What's your favorite keto dessert, and how do you make it?
I am such a sweets guy that I'm always very, very cautious about sweets in general, because they tend to start the snowball a-rolling towards the real thing. I will have to say, while I was at FitCon, I gave the chocolate bar that Quest has got coming out a try. That was amazing. The other thing that I would say from a personal meal perspective, I used to, and I haven't in a long time, make homemade peanut butter cups with dark chocolate and artificial sweeteners and stuff, and they were absolutely gonzo, but it's been so long since I've made them. It's not exactly the hardest recipe in the world. It's basically melt chocolate, pour it over peanut butter, freeze it, and eat it. So I love to grill, I love to cook, but baking and sweets I am just absolutely useless at. So
I'm very good at it. So we can be
friends.
And
what's your goal weight, Tyler? What are you trying to get down to? What are you?
Target for pre-surgery is I want to be below 250.
Okay.
At this point, it's hard to really know because one of the wonderful side effects of having lost as much weight is a whole lot of loose skin where it makes a lot of the testing methodologies really inaccurate. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to know how much further I can go. What they are fairly certain of is that I've got about 180 to 190 pounds of lean mass. And so that seems like a pretty good place to jump in and get some of this taken care of so that I can really kick it into a little better overdrive with regard to training. So,
yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Hello?
Oh, no, it was just me.
Okay.
I said, that's the plan anyway.
Okay, gotcha. No, I was just going to say Ray Stewart from season 1, he was at FitCon. He recently had his skin removal surgery, and he's been recovering from that. And it's been frustrating for him because he can't exercise, he can't move. He's like, for 6 weeks, he's like, this is horrible. But now he's I think today if he posted his first video of him, being able to exercise again. He was happy again. So I'm sure you're mentally prepared for that part of it, right? I mean, there's a recovery process
Definitely.
and things like that.
I've been told about 3 months is about how long I'll have to lay out of the gym. And it's not my favorite part, but every decision has consequences, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, cool, Tyler. Man, I just want to say thank you once again for being such an inspiration, coming on the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast, sharing your story. We'll definitely have to keep everybody updated on your progress, and we'll tell everybody about the boot camp class, and keep us posted on your surgery and your recovery, and we'll definitely stay in touch, man.
Definitely appreciate the time, guys.
Yeah,
thank you
thanks
so
for your
much,
inspiration
man.
and your humor. I always enjoy that.
It's good to have both
and
of
you
those.
are one special snowflake, Tyler.
Don't tell me that. Now all the rules don't apply, Lynn.
Yeah. All right, Tyler. Good talking to you, man.
See ya.
Bye. What's up, you guys? I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Tyler Cartwright and were inspired and motivated. Hopefully you'll take some good gems from this episode and apply it in your life. Just a reminder, our sponsors for the show are Ketogenics. Don't forget to use my code FIT2FAT2FIT. That's ketogenics.com. Use my code FIT2FAT2FIT and
Quest Nutrition, questnutrition.com, Quest bars.
Yes. And just as a reminder, you guys, please, if you're a big fan of this podcast, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Give us a 5-star rating if you find this podcast valuable.
If you don't, please don't go there. Don't comment. Don't give us any rating.
Yes, don't give us a 1-star review, please. If you do, reach out to us first and let us know what we can do differently for you guys. None of this would be possible without you guys. We definitely want to deliver, good content, very valuable information that's going to help you guys maintain a healthy lifestyle. So just reach out to us. You can reach out to me on social media. All my handles are at Fit to Fat to Fit, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat now. That's pretty funny nowadays. I am even on Snapchat. So at Fit to Fat to Fit.
And you can reach me at 2Fit at Home. My website is the number 2fitathome.com. Also, all of my handles, Instagram and Facebook, are 2Fit at Home. I'm on Snapchat, but I'm not going to give you guys that because I do not post any useful information, and most of it's inappropriate.
And most of it is donuts.
And most of it is me eating donuts.
Exactly. But anyways, thank you guys so much. Don't forget to tune in next week for another great episode. We really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys back here next week.
See you guys.